Great. Well, good morning and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tracy Curran. I'm one of the directors of product marketing here at Actian. We're really delighted to have today's guest. For many of you, William McKnight is probably a name you're very familiar with. He's a prolific author, popular keynote speaker and trainer, former IT data executive at a Fortune 50 company, and he is rated the #1 global influencer in big data and cloud computing. He is currently consulting with some of the biggest brands in the world, and we are excited to have him present today on how you can use your data to avoid business disruptions with the changing market. So, housekeeping, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We will go ahead and get to as many as we can at the end of this, and anything else we'll follow up with. And you will receive a copy of this presentation once we've concluded the recording. So, I guess with that, I will pass it over to you, William.
All right, just enable screen sharing for me and I'll get moving. Welcome, everybody. Great to have you here, whether you're live or catching this at a later date. Here to talk about using data in a downturn, building business resiliency with analytics. Okay, here we go. When I plan on presenting a deck, it's a lot easier to have the deck up for me to talk. Okay, hopefully you see that all right. Not everybody may feel like they're in a downturn right now. I think maybe that the sense that everybody seemed to have that we're in a downturn and budgets are shrinking and so on. We're still in that, but we seem to be coming out of it. It's a really strange time, really strange economy right now, because it kind of depends on the company that I talk to. There's a lot of polarization in terms of their attitudes towards where they are in their spending cycles, whether they're spending like crazy to try to get ahead or they're really conservative at this point. So you have to assess, what are you in at your enterprise? What is the climate of your enterprise? If you're in a downturn at your enterprise, acknowledge it and understand that when you are, and inevitably most companies will get there are new rules to play by. And that's what I'm here to share with you today. Now, I happen to think that these rules are good, period, no matter what economy that your enterprise is in. But you can judge accordingly. Sometimes you don't have to go quite as far as where I'm going to take you today, which is down into return on investment on these projects. Okay, it's a little bit about me. I've been introduced, so I'll move on from here. Today, there is some cautious spending going on in an uncertain economy. There are pockets of incremental growth, and congratulations. If you're on this call, this webinar, you are probably in the space that is doing relatively well, which is data, AI, cloud. We see all of those things still getting pretty strongly invested in. But reduction of overall spend is a corporate driver today in most of the enterprises that I deal with. Pullback is macro-driven with recession concerns. Anytime there are these overarching concerns, whether it's real or perceived, that does trickle down into all enterprises, and they proceed with caution, and that's where we are today. There are some projects that are being delayed and de-scoped with efforts to consolidate redundant solutions. In other words, spend less to have the same thing going in the enterprise. There's another layer there of things we can get rid of, things that are not producing for our bottom line. But there is really a bit of a return, what I say is a return to ROI happening right now. Now, I happen to be very optimistic about where IT budgets are going. So it may just be a matter for you to just hang in there, because in the second half of this year, I think that, which we're in now, of course, I think that budgets are kind of returning to a normal zone, but we'll see. Again, some industries, some economies, some enterprises are going to come out of that a little bit slower. So what's the thing that's going to really pull us out or not? It's generative AI. I expect that to be a real big gold rush, if you will, in 2024. And I feel like that every enterprise is kind of clamoring for access to generative AI tools. And data, which is what we do, it's the gold for AI training and analytics, of course, driving the need for data cleansing and governance tools as well to address widespread data quality issues in preparation for AI initiatives. So all this talk about AI, some people are good with it, some people are not. The gold lining here is that it is going to drive enterprise projects that we can participate in. So yay. The data project landscape now, getting a little bit more into our areas. The data and analytics space is seeing stable and steady growth despite a volatile macro environment. Yes, my projects, your projects maybe, are taking a little bit longer than hoped, taking a little bit longer than they used to, but still they are happening. Just maybe not as quickly as we would like, but there's a poll for you presented right now. Are you looking at AI projects today? So take a second, give me your response to that, because I feel, again, like AI is going to be the thing that is going to drive a lot of projects in the near future, next year. Right now, what I see is what I will call random acts of AI. And it has a lot of challenges still around data privacy, governance, and security, as well as some key hurdles to overcome in the adoption of generative AI. But it is a shiny new tool that everybody is talking about. So please be aware of that. And our polling results are, quickly, I did see that 83% are looking at AI projects today. Okay, it's kind of a low bar question, right? Looking at, but that does give you that does coincide with what I'm trying to say about how AI is going to drive a lot of projects. Definitely believe that. So enterprises right now, what I see generally kind of that bell curve middle is that enterprises are in test mode with generative AI, and I expect max production projects in 2024. So call this year 0, next year 1, it's going to take off. So hang in there for that and get yourself knowledgeable about that and what it means to us in data and analytics. So I feel like the interest in AI could kick off a cycle of IT investment as broader AI strategies become more clearly defined in the coming weeks and months. Whether this is incremental investment or the reallocation of budget from other projects does remain to be seen. But either way, we are in a return to value. And AI is about automation. It really is about ROI and TCO. Yes, I know. There's a lot of AI projects that are speculative, strategic, if you will, maybe no numbers attached to them. But if you go into them and keep going, maybe you do find that there are some numbers that are interesting to all projects, especially around what we do, AI and data kind of projects. So we need to become familiar with what it is that we're doing in our projects and how they track to the bottom line, how they track to return on investment. Again, AI being automation, that's a more straightforward kind of AI ROI than some other AI type of projects. So automation, you have 2 expense lines for getting to the same result. That can be compared and the right thing be done there. But let's acknowledge the strategic, especially as we get into AI. Data is needed to get competitive advantage, increase market share, all the things that you see there, which may or may not have a detailed, documented return on investment number that they're sharing broadly, that we're trying to hit, and all that sort of thing. But behind the scenes, there is that, at least in some executive heads, about why we're doing what we're doing. And I do find that a lot of the projects I've worked on, I'd say probably 75, 80%, there is a more outward ROI component to it than just, oh, it's in somebody's head that this will work and so on. We're going to increase coffee sales. We're going to decrease our supply chain expenses. And sometimes we know a number that we're targeting for, sometimes not. Frequently, I've been brought into helping to define what those target metrics should be, or assess after the fact, were the target metrics from prior actually being hit? And these are some of the things that you start to deal with when you're in an uncertain economy, which is kind of what this is about. I'm going to share with you how to deal with things as the purses get tightened. And then I'm going to share with you some things that, even though the purses are tightened, I don't want you to let go of. We can't let go of that. We have to fight for those things because it's going to bite us in the long run. And I don't even mean the long run. I just mean like in a year, if we do not do some things around our data programs. So there's some hills worth dying on in this space, and I'll be sharing some of those with you. Now, here's a skill set that we need as an organization. And we know how these things come together, sometimes with skill and with some good rational processes, sometimes not. But the rational process behind prioritizing efforts should be something like what you see here. What is easy to do? I like easy. I like getting it done. I like things that work within my current client's current technology set. We don't need another database, data integration tool, et cetera, and within the current skill set. That's only going to get us so far. I also like to do things up front that set us up for down the road, because a project is not a project is not a project. The way that I divide up work into projects may be different than how you do it. So be mindful of that. You can cut that, how do you say, you cut that horse up different ways, I suppose. But finally, involved in the prioritization efforts is return on investment. And that is, of all of these, that's a skill that we lack. And we don't bring enough to the table in determining our roadmaps within our enterprises. And so that's what I'm going to share with you some more information about today, because it's uber important in tightening economies. Okay, well, it's difficult. It is difficult because it's ordered. We're not just selling subscriptions to the data warehouse. We are doing something with the data in the data warehouse that allows us to do something that ultimately results in a sale of something, or a sale of a new category, or et cetera, et cetera. But mostly, at the end of the day, it's more sales of whatever it is that you do. More contracts if you're in government, more whatever. First order benefits, they're great and easy. They have a direct relationship to the bottom line. Unfortunately, I very seldom, and you very seldom, I'm sure, deal with first order benefits. And that's what makes it difficult. We have to think a little bit abstractly and go into second, third, et cetera, order benefits. Third order benefits are the most difficult of these three, obviously, because to do a true ROI, you have to incorporate the two activities that drive the benefit, or all the activities that drive the benefit. So if you're talking a fifth order benefit, you got to go through 5 different layers before you get to that benefit. And who's going to want to do that? Well, unfortunately, sometimes to get these great projects off the ground that enterprises need, especially around data, somebody has to do it, and that may fall to you as the analytics and data person. But you say, I'm only working on this layer of the whole thing. Okay, great. But is it instrumental to the enterprise? Is it something that you have the skill to do? I think that's where we can step up and be leaders and do some of these things and get the right projects off the ground. Now, most of the data warehouse oriented projects that I have worked on, they provide a second or third order benefit. So take heed. It's not usually fourth, fifth, sixth, et cetera, crazy like that. But usually there is a path that we can follow. It's a bit laborious, but we can get there. And we can do this. We can get those projects going that we want to work on and we want to do and want to improve the enterprise with. So let's talk about analytics, program and project justification during a downturn. And I'm trying to distinguish here a little bit between program and project, because I find 25 years of consulting in this space, I found that there's a real mix out there of what people think about when they think about analytics. What is it? So let's get into that a little bit, because if you are clear with your communication around this with your counterparties, it will take you so much further. It will take the conversation further. It will take the progress so much further. And yes, that's even true on Zoom. even if we're not getting together face to face. So let's talk about the future. Trusted knowledge of an accurate future is undoubtedly the most useful knowledge to have. Unfortunately, even Nostradamus got things wrong. We cannot predict the future with high accuracy, or can we? We can predict it with higher accuracy, and every point is a huge difference to the bottom line. So the future that we want to create is one that we have intervened into appropriately and tuned to our preferences, usually driving people into the funnel and keeping them on that funnel to a sale. For example, analytics is a systemic examination of a company's information. It's detailed. It's not shallow. It's different from BI. It's deeper, and I'm going to get into that. But they are the key to predicting the future, which again, trusted knowledge of that future is undoubtedly the most useful knowledge to have. If you know what's going to happen, you can either like it and leave it, or you can say, I don't like that, and here's what I need to do to tune it. And that's the essence of analytics. So what do we mean by analytics? Business intelligence, let's just distinguish it from business intelligence, because that's something that a lot of us have a lot of play with now over the course of decades, right? Business intelligence is looking at data and telling us what's already happened. It's the rear view mirror, if you will. The analytics is looking forward. It's telling you what's going to happen, should be real time. And this is the key here. It's formed from summaries of data. It's formed from complexity. It's formed from your entire body of data to be more precise. You drive more precision into your analytics, the more data that you bring into the analytics. And this is where artificial intelligence plays so hard. I mean, look at generative AI. What it's doing when it's writing for us, right? Writing sentences, is it's predicting the next word that it's determining the next word it should say based upon this body of data and how they use words. And that is exactly, parallel to what analytics are within our enterprises. We're seeing a pattern happening with a customer, a set of customers, a cluster of customers, some sort of cohort, and we can predict, this is where that's going. So we intervene. We want to intervene at early points. The technology is different between BI and analytics, and the questions are different. And one thing that we've done more recently, like in the past few years, I would say only few years, is we've started to add big data to the analytics, not just small data, but big data. Not just data in the data warehouse, but also data maybe in our data lakes, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the data warehouse is very instrumental to this process. AI, AI enhances analytics. I started to get into this. AI is really now the key, the elegant key to predicting the future. If you're trying to predict the future, you're falling behind if you're not using AI to help you with that kind of prediction. And what does AI need? We all know what AI needs. AI needs data. And where's it going to get that data? I get asked that question. I must get asked that question a couple times a week. Well, where's AI going to get its data? And my answer is usually, and I'm not going to go kind of too sidebar on this, but my answer is usually from a great data architecture, from a data warehouse, from a data lake, from maybe master data management, maybe other data hubs or analytic databases, but from a great data architecture that definitely includes a data warehouse today. And we want to, with artificial intelligence, we want to know how to intelligently intervene into that future and again, shape it the way that we want it to do, want it to go. Deeper analytics, self-service data discovery, intelligent recommendation of new data to bring in. This is all what AI can do for us. And AI can cluster data, for example, with photo tagging. So it can enhance data, bring it to a higher point of cultivation, which makes it more usable by a more common process or person than having to try to interpolate on top of data that's fairly disparate and disjointed. So AI can bring a lot of information together more than even straight up analytics. These are some of the things that these are some projects that are happening. This is the basis of projects that are happening even in this economy. And these are projects that need to happen. So back to analytics program and projects. So some of you are working on analytics projects or trying to, and some of you are working on an analytics program or trying to. So let's just distinguish here. A project where analytics is seen as a standalone project is built for one application. Now, there are in my companies, everybody's a little bit different, but some companies refer to projects that use a lot of analytics as an analytics project, like targeted marketing. Targeted marketing is an analytics project because it uses a lot of analytics. Okay, point taken. I'd rather just call it targeted marketing because that's what it's doing for the business. It's doing that using analytics, but that's a project. Targeted marketing is a project. It starts, it has checkpoints. I won't say it ever fully ends, but there are points at which you push to production and you use it. That's a project. Justifying an analytics program, on the other hand, a program is where analytics store enterprise data, probably in a data warehouse. Their inclusion should be based upon governance. So we want to get the business involved. That's a whole webinar in and of itself, but we definitely want to have that business input. The goal of the program is to enable the component of the application that it supports. The component of the application that it supports. So targeted marketing, let's dial it in. Let's dial that in perfectly so that we make the right next best action according to the pattern of behavior for that customer and the pattern of his or her cohorts and more broadly speaking as well. Pattern of behavior, we want to mimic, we want to get this customer to mimic the patterns that we like. Yet we want to take small chances to move them. I hope I'm saying this right, to move the needle in the right direction without taking too much risk to try to move it completely in our direction and kind of lose the whole thing. Well, that's more AI and analytics right there, determining the right next best step. It can be complicated. That's why we love to have AI involved in this. So with that background, what are you justifying? An analytics program, which will provide analytics for several projects, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. A project, which will use analytics, like my targeted marketing example, a project. How about analytics for a project? The project is here. We fit in here with our analytics. We're building the analytics for targeted marketing. Or how about the inclusion of new projects into an existing analytics program? So if your analytics program backbone is the data warehouse, as it frequently is, how do we get targeted marketing to use it? Maybe there's more fields we need. Maybe there's more calculations we need to be doing and that sort of thing. So get through the confusion by understanding what needs to be justified and working on that justification. So if you're justifying a project with ROI, the project can be reduced to its anticipated bottom line cash flows to the company to generate the analytics ROI, which is really a misnomer. It's ROI for, again, using the example, targeted marketing. So what's the ROI of targeted marketing? Somebody needs to do that to get that project, I almost slipped, that project up and running. But if you're justifying an analytics program from its beginning, or you're trying to extend it, maybe that's the data warehouse again, the question becomes, why do we want to architect the new business project into the data warehouse program and architecture instead of using just some other database or what we used to call independent data marts? Why do one versus the other? The projects need data, and they're going to get data one way or the other. They either get good data built by professionals and cultivated and managed and governed and well-performing and all that, or they're going to try to do it themselves and try to achieve all those things on their own. So the data warehouse, we want to build that once, use it many times within the enterprise. I find that frequently, though, we like to over-allocate the ROI to the technology. Let me explain what I mean there. Sometimes I see case studies from a vendor about the ROI of their product, but really it's the ROI of the overall application. So I look at these case studies now, having done this so much, with maybe a bit of a skeptical view. Maybe you all don't have to take that on yourselves, but I think it helps to be skeptical about what you read about and try to dig in a little bit to see where the true ROI is coming from on these projects or on these write-ups. So analytics program justifications. There's ROI and TCO. So ROI, quick math here for you for this morning. Return minus investment over investment. That's it. That's all you need to know. ROI should always be supported within a time period. So if you're saying it's a blah, blah, blah return, 132%, in how many years? If it's in a week, that's great. That's probably too good to be true. But if it's in 3 years, still sounds pretty good from a banking perspective. But how about from an enterprise project perspective? I don't know. Everybody's a little bit different on what their threshold is as to what makes sense for them. ROI should be presented with assumptions and risks and be itemized. And there's a lot of them every time. And remember, you're never going to nail this right on the head. Oh, yeah, we got the ROI perfectly. It's a guesstimate, but it needs to be sound. And you can break this up by source system, subject area, however you want to break it up. The use of AI, ML, however you want to break it up. Add up the possibilities, but don't oversell. Don't get crazy. Don't say it's going to be, oh, well, if we do this analytics project, it's going to deliver 1,000% ROI in the first year. I don't think so. So don't get crazy with it. You might have to check yourself if you're actually thinking in those terms, all right? Now, the TCO, on the other hand, is you're analyzing the impact of operational systems on business processes. So the cost factor comes into play real heavily here. The questions are different. Questions are different around TCO. The TCO says we're going to do something. The question is, what are we going to do? There we get a little bit more technical. Are we going to put this in the cloud or on-prem? Is this going to be hybrid, or is it going to be all cloud or all on-prem, what have you? There's a lot of questions. I'm going to come back to some of these questions here in a bit, but different set of questions for ROI than there is TCO. ROI is more about the math, okay? So if you're in that world of math, you're probably trying to justify ROI. If you're in the world of trying to figure out the best way to go forward, oftentimes that means the cheapest way to go forward. However, by cheapest, we don't mean just simply cut our throat, what's bottom line cheapest. We mean cheapest in the sense of still providing us everything that we need and might need down the road, and we might think we might need down the road, because a lot of times technologies like Actian has inherent within it features and functionalities that you can't see the need for today, but you will in the future. Some other company sees the need for every feature function that's in every product, but you may not. But you have to assess, might I in the future? And sometimes what those feature functions allow you to do in the future is to achieve more. Whereas if the feature function wasn't built into your technology, then you're just not going to do it, because you have to home grow it. And that's hard, and you don't have the programmers, you don't have the bandwidth, so forget it. So if it's built into the technology, then all the better. So this is one reason why it's very important, the database that you choose for your analytics, for your data warehouse, etc. They are all different. I don't care what anybody says. I am deep into the feature functions of every major database out there, and do a lot of the comparison work for vendors and for the market. And I can tell you that if somebody's out there saying, well, blah, blah, blah database it's the same, it's just another database, right? Even though what are we about? We're about 25, 30 years into relational databases by now, maybe even longer. They are different. They are different, and that does matter. So anyway, little sidebar there, I think. Variations on the ROI theme. Now, I'm not going to have you get out your spreadsheets, get out your pencils, get out your calculators here. No need for that today. But if you hear these things, just know that they're just a few Excel functions away. Once you get the cash flow going from the projects. Okay, so if you're predicting targeted marketing, you're predicting a bottom line cash flow on a, let's say, quarter by quarter basis over the course of as far out as you can see. And to me, it's usually 2 or 3 years. I mean, that's a lifetime these days. But anyway, I'm predicting out that far on a quarter by quarter basis. Once I have that cash flow, then it's easy to do any of these that your CFO may want or whoever may want to go along with justifying the project. Just a few clicks away in Excel and so forth. So I won't belabor that. Now, I said before, we're not Nostradamus, and even he got some things wrong, right? And there are different outcomes for every scenario that we're presenting. So I'll just quickly say, there's an optimal scenario. Everything goes great, gangbusters, and there's a target scenario, and there's an adverse scenario, which is most everything goes wrong. You might even call it failure. This project doesn't take off the way we like. And then you can assign probabilities across those 3 or 4 or 5, however many you want to do. Don't get crazy. I think 3 is more than enough for most cases. But you come up with your probability. You come up with your 3 ROIs, multiply it out with your probability. That goes on the cover of the business case. And then everything gets broken down from there. Into 30, 40, 50 pages. But that's your cover shot right there. So, and there is some psychology to the presentation. I'll leave that aside, but there's some psychology to the presentation. And some of you may be finding yourself in this world now for the first time, and it's because of the downturn in the economy. And so that's why I want to empower you to get those projects moving, get them justified in the right way. And I happen to think this is the right way, period. You got to use tangible returns. That's part of it. Returns that you decide to measure. That's my definition for it. Returns you decide to measure. You can measure a lot of things. You can measure how many pencils you're going to use on a project if you want to get that deep. Let's not do that. Let's just hit the high points. Maybe 1 or 2 per phase. And I say phase because the project might evolve, but 1 or 2 things that you're trying to do. I love increases in sales because that's really kind of the bottom line of why we exist as a company. So there's that. There's all these other things that you might measure. But a lot of us in technology, we try to justify our projects with these other things, and they really don't work when you're in a downturn. Improve customer experience and satisfaction. I mean, unless there's been a really negative customer score, that really doesn't resonate as well as we might think. And increase customer loyalty. These all sound good and they're great. Let's do them for sure, but let's keep going. That's my point. Keep going beyond that. I don't know if I have it on here, but I've had people try to justify projects on we're improving data quality. Great, but what does that do for these projects? Pick 1 or 2. How does it improve the efficacy? We're going to do more better targeted marketing. That's going to drive a better bottom line. There's your basis for an ROI and data quality, which could be its own presentation, by the way. Here are some data-related ROI examples of customer analytics. And these are projects, and these are well-known companies. Frankly, all of these companies are doing all of these things, but these are some of the things that they've done that stand out, that they're out there talking about. Look at what we did and some of the architecture behind it. I hope you find your way into this with your dealings with your customers, identifying customer buying patterns, optimizing product recommendations. Netflix, identifying customer viewing habits and optimizing content recommendations. How about optimizing product design based upon customer analytics? Optimizing menu items, resulting in increasing sales. All of these, I think all of these say resulting in increase in sales. Well, Netflix increase in viewership, which is pretty close to sales for them. Increase in sales. So that's a lot of what I see, a lot of what I do when I'm talking about data-related data projects now that are driving to ROI. How about supply chain? Again, big companies here, I'm using all of these do it all, right? These are just some of the ones that stand out. All these examples are preventing business failure. So this is one example of how analytics prevents business failure. All of these things are business imperatives. If you're not optimizing inventory management and ensuring fast delivery times as Amazon, you're out of business. If you're not incorporating real-time data on customer demand, inventory levels, and transportation logics, and you're Walmart, you're out of business, because that's absolutely essential today. All of these things are essential today to do, and to do well if you want to compete at the highest levels of these industries. And it's all about analytics. So I talked about some ROI examples, and that's for your projects. But those of you that are over here, I'm a little bit isolated from projects. I am building an analytics program. Maybe you're putting up an Actian data warehouse, something like that. What are some of the questions that you have to answer? You still have to justify your approach here in the enterprise. Are you using a data warehouse or a data lake? It doesn't have to be either or, but anyway, that's a big question. Data fabric, data mesh, data lakehouse, data cloud, or all of the above, because they're not mutually exclusive. Which hyperscaler are we going to use? Which hyperscaler shape are we going to use? People say, well, it's the cloud, you don't need to know much. How about picking the shape? Yeah, you better pick that right if you want to optimize your workload. And Amazon has, 130 some odd shapes that it offers you in AWS. So that's not an easy throw the dart at the dartboard kind of decision there. Master data management, one of my hot buttons. Master data management or not, or don't do it that way. Do it some other way. Upgrade or replace, outsource or insource. All of these things have a couple of different expense streams. I didn't say revenue. I didn't say returns. Just they have different expense streams. And so you want to show that and pick the one with the lowest expense stream. But again, you got to incorporate the future into that so that you're not cutting off your nose to spite your face. Pick great technologies that have a great roadmap, that are committed to that roadmap and committed to things that are interesting to you, to your industry, to you down the road, etc. Now, let's say you're in that downturn. These are some things that you cannot let go. These are the last things to go. Once you're doing these things, you are giving up at that point. And hey, there's a time to give up. I agree with that. I've had customers that say, we're just making this ship go as long as possible. We're not doing big reinvestment. We're in a dwindling industry. That's just who we are right now. And so just help us keep going. Help us get the next 10 feet down the road. Okay. But if you're not in that mode, like 5% of companies out there, don't let go of these things. And the first thing I'm going to say is, too often, we look at that part of the iceberg that's above the waterline only, when the real leverage is the data foundation. We're looking at our dashboards. We're looking at our KPIs, our reports, etc. And we are working hard on them, assuming the data layer is a fixed. Now, if you work in data and analytics in your organization, and your customers internally perceive that your data warehouse is fixed and there's nothing they can do about it, there's nothing that they can influence, so they just got to take your data and do what they really need to do to it, that's a problem. So you want to be more flexible than that, and you want to be sure the organization understands that it needs to be working on the data foundation first and foremost. And then they can slap any BI tool on top of our great data foundation and get where they need to go. Okay, Work on leverageable platforms. The data warehouses still have a lower total cost of ownership than data marts. Okay, this is something I may have said. I'll admit I probably said as far back as 20 years ago, and I'm still saying it, but it's still true, and it still needs to be heard, because so many of us out there in the enterprise, we want to do our own thing for an application and not join into the shared data warehouse. And that's what a data warehouse really is. It's that word shared. It's something that can be built once, used for many, many applications, all analytic applications. Now we can argue about whether you access the warehouse or it's a feeder system, whatever on that. But if you, again, I'm going to say, if your data warehouse is perceived as something that really can't be used by something new, it's locked into, it just does SAP, it just does the PeopleSoft, that's it. I got this new application, I guess I have to build my own data warehouse. That's a problem. Okay, why is that? Work on that. You cannot let this go just because you're in a downturn. A data warehouse is a shared platform, so is the data lake, so is master data management. These are all leverageable platforms. I advise CDOs on what they should be working on within their enterprises, and I gravitate towards these leverageable platforms as priority items. And if they have no leverageable platforms, and some have very few, then that's what they need to work on, because you just cannot be super inefficient going forward with 100 different data warehouses or analytic databases. So let's get real about that. Now, what about data lakes? Data lakes and the balance of analytics. Again, things that you can't let go of in a downturn. So what we see now is we got the data warehouse, we got our data lakes, great. And then there's some bridge there, right? Some of us have a data lake house, but where's it all going? So we're pushing more and more to the data lake, but at the same time, the data warehouse is blowing up as well within the organization. Good news, there's room for both. There's a need for both. And it'll be that way for the foreseeable future. I do not see when, or if I'm guessing, it's 5 to 10 years out. It's beyond the actionable future. The actionable future is what I work on for my clients. They can't be waiting 5 to 10 years for technology developments. There's no one size fits all. We've got all this. We have more analytical applications on the warehouse than we ever did. We have more analytical applications on the lake than we ever did. So, and we're having to get a little bit closer to our data lake users, which historically has been data scientists, but now is becoming more like everybody, just like the data warehouse. So we're having to get a little bit closer to what they're doing with the data in the data lake so that we can be great at what we do, which is providing them that platform so they can succeed with analytics. Don't let go of data virtualization, delivering fresh, disparate data in real time, because you're not going to get your architecture perfect. You're going to have data in different places. Now, it shouldn't be a crutch to be virtualizing every query. I'm not saying that, but the right answer is not always to centralize the data. It depends on volume. It depends on timing. It depends on how frequently you're going to be accessing the data in that manner. Is it just a month-end query? Okay, if it's just a month-end query and nobody's going to jump up and down about it taking 10 seconds, let it take 10 seconds, keep the data in disparate platforms, great. You got virtualization. Always have the virtualization capability in place as kind of a catch-all for design, I won't say flaws, but for design decisions that maybe weren't made with the current state in mind. And then work on that. Keep working on that. Don't just let everything go to virtualization and say, well, it works. It's got to perform as well. And virtualization sometimes doesn't perform quite as well. That's what I mean by data virtualization. Now, don't let go of the need for data scientists. I know scientists are working on the big things, the future things, and all that sort of thing. Well, yeah, that's historically been true, but more recently, we find that data scientists it's becoming so hot that the label itself is starting to be tiered into different layers of data scientists. And a lot of the more mundane things are being done by quote unquote data scientists. It's a definition that's becoming difficult to work on. And there are some negative things, or I won't say negative, but there are some difficult things about data scientists. Difficult to find, retain, lengthy recruiting process, et cetera, et cetera. But again, let me back off of a little bit of these words because, like I say, there's such a thing as really a junior data scientist, or you might say an advanced data analyst that's growing into that data scientist role. It's a spectrum. It's now a spectrum of data scientists. So anyway, that's all kind of what's happening. What you should do in this environment is continue to invest in your data scientists, because those discoveries that they make within the data are going to be essential for your continued business imperative. It's a business imperative. So and their top job is AI and ML. And I talked before about how important AI and ML is to your enterprise. Nearly 8 out of 10 enterprise organizations are currently engaged in AI and ML. And they report that the projects have a lot of them are reporting that the projects have stalled due to lack of expertise and so on. So you have to keep this funnel going. But a lot of the problems, this is kind of an aside, but a lot of those problems have to do with lack of data quality, lack of data governance, lack of data labeling required to train AI data, and just building models, having confidence in that process. So it's not just hiring data scientists and your work is done for AI and ML. It's a joint responsibility. Now, you'll need many domains mastered, and you need to keep this in mind as you think about what you're keeping, what you're letting go of in a challenging economy in your company. So, for example, marketing, cybersecurity, et cetera, these projects all need multiple of my data domains. Now, where's the data domains at? Where are they mastered? Are you talking about master data management? I might be. For a lot of them, I hope I am for you, but I know I'm not. I know that they're all over the place. But I would hope that you're cataloging them. I would hope that you're doing quasi MDM if you're not doing real MDM. But also, some of these things like sales, transactions, airline reservations, and so on, they're going to be more in a database, and they're going to be mastered in the data warehouse, and you need to know that as well. And these projects, we can cross-reference them here between project and data domains, and we would have a lot of lines in that process, and that's kind of what we do for our enterprise customers that need to build a roadmap of what they're going to work on, because we want them to work on the data domains or the subject areas that are of maximum interest, again, based upon the ease of use, prerequisites, and bottom line ROI that I talked about before. So in order to do that, I need to know what's coming in the pipeline, what should be coming in the pipeline, and that sort of thing. So that's how we would build out our roadmap. Roadmaps are essential. Technology roadmaps, application roadmaps, both in even a challenging economy. So in summary, it's a return to value methodology in these trying times. Cost analysis, this is the flow. Cost analysis, tangible benefits analysis, not intangible. Cash flow analysis, get that bottom line, put a probability distribution on it, calculate the ROI. Intangible benefits analysis, yes, we do that too. We throw that in there, but we don't try to put numbers on intangible benefits. This is the problem that a lot of people get into, is they try to put numbers on intangible benefits. They're not there. You don't have the will to come up with those numbers. Data quality, what's the ROI in data quality? You don't have the will maybe to do it. So we list them, and then we get into prioritization and planning, and it's a continuous learning process. Never done, but to me, that's fun. To me, that's fun to see things evolve over time to see things utilizing the new technology, to see things moving forward in great economies and challenging economies. So in summary, the climate is return to value. Target the business deliverables of the project, not the technology deliverables, the business deliverables. Use a repeatable, consistent process using governance for project justification. What project should we do? Use lower TCO for program justification. So we're going to do it in a program manner. We're going to share the analytics across multiple applications. Why? It actually saves money to do it that way. It's lower TCO. Isolate your project benefits and costs. If it's important, we're going to make it tangible. If it's important enough, and if you can improve it, the project will almost always pay for itself. Target the big things. Target the big things. Be assertive about the power of data. Be assertive about the importance of data within your enterprise. If you move the needle on your fraud, if you move the needle on your sales, if you move the needle on your returns, if you move the needle on your inventory, you will pay, that project will pay for itself. So create good projects that target important things. And your judgment remains essential. Even though this is a process, your judgment has to stay in here and come to the forefront every single day. So I'm not taking any judgment away from you by giving you this little bit of science. The judgment is essential, and I'll always say that. Those companies with strong data and analytics and dedicated use cases will be winners in any environment. This means informed decision-making, improved customer experience, improved supply chain, and improved risk mitigation. And with that, I will end the formal part of the presentation and see if you have any questions.
Thank you, William. We're actually at time, a little over. So I want to thank everybody who attended today. And thank you, William, for your wonderful presentation. I hope that I hope everybody found some value in it. And we'll see you again next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.